Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Best day of the week. Let's go. Welcome to the show, Jamie. Welcome back. We have a week without Michael Golden. It's so good to see your face. I heard you just got back from a lovely trip in Colombia last night. So thank you for joining us on an early Monday after arriving late in the evening.
Yeah, it was an amazing trip. Stayed in quite a few short-term rentals throughout Colombia and even a boutique hotel. But it was
How was the experience?
Yeah, it was great. 9 days away from the kids with my wife, and we had a amazing.
It's like Colombia, whatever. 9 days away from the kids. That's what it was about.
100%.
Also did some primary research around Airbnb experiences. Did a sort of full day mountain biking in the coffee plantations, mountains of Colombia. So that was pretty cool.
Were
You
in
should have
Salento?
gone to our farm. Our coffee farm is actually in Colombia, which gets roasted in North Carolina. So we should have just sent you out there to do like a big Well and Good Morning coffee tour.
I was probably there.
You were probably there. Sorry, Brandy, what were you saying? I jumped in.
Oh,
and
no,
cut
I
you off.
asked if you were in Salento.
No, it was just we were in Medellin, and then went out just outside in Valencia, outside of Medellin, and then went to Cartagena.
Nice. I saw that you guys went to Alambique, which I cannot believe is still there. It's such a good restaurant. It was
Yeah.
I was in Colombia in 2017, so I was like, it's nice to see
Wow.
those places still existing.
Yeah, my colleague at AirDNA, Dylan Dubois, used to live in Medellin for like a few years and sent us his list. He's like, I'm not sure if any of these are still open, but here are all our favorite places, and that was top of the list.
Awesome.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Dylan, the first person at AirDNA that I met back in 2018. He's an OG. He's a big OG.
Yeah,
I love it. Shout out to Dylan.
Now still around and doing some awesome things. He's actually running product management for uplisting now.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I love that. I do want to hear in the future, Jamie, and this may be a Slick Talk episode that we'll actually be recording in a couple of weeks, but hear a little bit more about what you guys plan to do with uplisting. It's been a little quiet since the acquisition, so I'm excited to hear what you guys are doing with it. Awesome. Well, you guys have a good weekend outside of the Colombia trip. Brandy, how are you been? You've been good? Good weekend, getting settled in the new place in Miami?
Yeah, we have cabinets that are physically in the house but are not installed, so that's fun. We're almost there. But yeah, it was a good weekend. I'm in the Costco Sunday runs now. I feel like I've officially ascended into my 30s now that that's a thing. So yeah, just a chill weekend, but a lot of
Yeah, I feel you. On that. I love that Denver is finally getting into fall and it's getting cozy. It's getting a little chilly. I'm wearing my hoodies more often. So I've been doing a lot of house cleaning too, getting the studio set up. It was a nice weekend. Very relaxing, very productive. Who would have thunk?
Nice.
Who would have thunk that you could have a nice weekend in? All right, but moving on, before we get into the meat of the episode, just some quick housekeeping. Obviously, Michael is gone. He was in New Orleans with his wife and brother and taking care of the kids while his wife and a few other family members went to a Taylor Swift concert. So, we almost got Michael to be a
Crazy
Swiftie.
weekend.
I think, yeah. Was it crazy for you guys in New Orleans?
Crazy. 3 days, sold out completely.
That's good.
How high did rates?
How many?
Yeah, how high did
Yeah,
rates
go
get?
Pretty high.
Pretty high.
I love Taylor Swift.
How,
Big fan now.
Security
Big fan.
calls did you guys get?
I have to
security calls?
say, our New Orleans field team, great job. Like I was constantly checking the Slack channels to see like what kind of chaos was going on, and like really minimal. I mean, this is not, people were saying it's crazier than Mardi Gras in the sense that like it's a lot of 1 and 2 night reservations. So you're just like those quick turns,
Yeah.
but like the crowd is not as chaotic, right? It's like, and everybody's physically in that location for hours, and then they come home, they go to bed most of the time. But it was fun. We had little friendship bracelets made and like custom Go cups with our mascot and like Taylor Swift on them. And it's been pretty calm so far. So we'll see. We'll have kind of like a recap tomorrow with the team after they deal with all the checkouts today. So if I have any good juicy stories, I'll let you know.
Please throw it in the group chat. Please. We would love it. Super good. Well, another quick housekeeping item before getting to the main meat again of the episode is our next Good Morning Retreat is happening January 13th through the 15th at the Bolt Farm Treehouse location in Tennessee. And we are so excited. We have a great list of people that have already confirmed their interest and availability to go, basically. And we're working on some really good, exciting things in terms of experiences, the food and beverage scenario. And of course, the theme of the retreat is building a brand in hospitality. So something I think a lot of our attendees resonate with as they've built great brands and a lot of good things that can get better throughout the people that are going to be attending. So I'm really excited about it all. And then a quick shout out to our friend of the pod, Robin Cragen, as they launched their Apex collection, which basically is just showcasing highlighting the best of the best. Wow, I don't know what highlightus is a word, but highlighting the best of the best mega ultra luxury homes and villas, chalets, etc. within the Movie Mountains portfolio, while expanding their operations and brand into Capella Ventures, which is their yacht edition. So if you want to charter a yacht and go around the British Virgin Islands, which I know the whole GMH crew wants to do, then you need to contact Robin Cragen and get with them because they have amazing yacht boats. I don't even call them yacht boats. Amazing charter options, whatever.
Words
available
today
for you.
are difficult.
So, yeah, words. The Adderall and the coffee are trying to compete for each other right now, and I think that's just where I messed up. So get ready for me to talk 1,000 miles a minute. But yeah, really big congratulations to Robin Cragen. I love the ability that not ability, but I love that property managers are getting creative and doing more personalized collections and curations on top of going beyond just offering a home or a lodging option and actually going into the experience piece, which I think is where the money is going to be for hospitality entrepreneurs to get back into. Yes, get back to the basics, but start exploring experiences and opportunities outside of the home. All right. Our first article today is the Hawaii issue, where the governor is trying to basically restrict short-term rentals, bring in more sporting events. And the article that we're covering is from Skift, written by Dawit. It was a really interesting article, lots of different points. So, Jamie, since you're the one that brought this into the group chat, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, so it's a interesting situation in Hawaii. I am wearing my Hawaii Short-Term Rental Alliance T-shirt that John On gave me, but I want to highlight a few things that is sort of going on in Hawaii. One, we still have tourism down significantly, and the governor wants to bring tourists back. And there's a lot of negative perception around Hawaii after the wildfires in Maui. And there's a few things that he calls out on what they're trying to bring to Hawaii. One is families, and another is getting people to stay longer when they're in Hawaii. And both of those sort of categories are what short-term rentals are sort of great at attracting in terms of the type of lodging that people are looking for. So by further restricting short-term rentals in Hawaii, governor is going to have a really hard time continuing to try to attract families in a very competitive market. The other sort of factor is just like, who is actually running and operating these short-term rentals in Hawaii. You look at the hotels, like the Hilton Hawaiian Village that's owned by a big corporate REIT, Park Hotels. Like you've got foreign investment and all the money that sort of comes in. Yes, some goes to the local employees, but a huge part of the overall local economy is driven by short-term rental owners, operators, and those cleaning, maintaining those properties too, which is a big factor on keeping and maintaining jobs and incomes in Hawaii. And a lot of that money doesn't go to these large corporations, goes directly to people in the islands and living in Hawaii. So I think what the governor and a lot of elected officials in Hawaii, they're working off of bad data. And we've been working with John a lot over this past year to provide them the data that they need. And they've been sort of sitting in the rooms with these elected officials to make sure they understand a lot of these points. And I think they're making progress, but maybe the governor needs to listen a bit more to what actually might help on tourism in Hawaii.
Yeah,
It seems like he's really.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Will.
Sorry, I didn't read the private chat, so my bad.
Didn't read the chat. No, this echoes a lot of the other conversations that we have, like pick your region, about like affordable housing for locals, and that they're not doing anything. At least this article doesn't highlight about like what new zoning laws are they passing, what funding is being released or made available for home builders to build workforce housing. Like, you're not going to take a couple thousand or a couple hundred short-term rentals and solve the entire state's like housing issue. You need to have better, it's just a really convenient scapegoat. And then it is very much in contrast to the type of business that they want to receive. And I think that a lot of that, obviously, you mentioned these large hotels, they're a big voice in the ear of these elected officials, right? And honestly, money in the pockets probably of these elected officials. And it doesn't make sense. You want to cram like a family of 5 into a hotel room for a week. Like that's not, that's not the most comfortable, but that's what, that's the dynamic. This is still this tension between what people actually want and what the status quo has been for so long.
So man, I'm muted. Man, what is going on today? Why I got too many moving pieces on my computer? No, it sounds like it's really interesting because wants to limit thousands of short-term rentals or take off thousands of short-term rentals off the market within Hawaii, and then wants to focus on, like you said, Brandy, tourism in the sense of families and big groups and people that have had like honeymoons or anniversaries in Hawaii, those type of memories to come back and relive those moments. And then also the sporting team issue, which is funny to me because it's like, all right, sporting teams, depending on, again, what the sport is and the league and how big they are, but sporting teams aren't just the athletes and the coach. It's, you got admins, you have trainers, you have a bunch of other staff that come with them. And then, of course, you have the families that want to go to these activities, whether it's the Olympics or if it's an NFL game, which I doubt they could do in Hawaii, but who knows? Like they could do a bunch of crazy stuff that attract these sport teams. But now you're not going to have any lodging options for them outside of hotels. They're going to fill up the hotels along with all the locals that maybe want to stay, do a staycation, or the people that actually can book a room before it gets sold out. And then there's no alternative option. Like legit, you're left with nothing if you cut thousands of short-term rentals. So it's like, okay, what's the goal? And as we saw in New York, when you do something so crazy to take off a bunch of inventory in one market, guess what happens to the surrounding markets? They get flooded with reservations and growth in occupancy, but then it'll probably taper off, and then you'll have a black market side of things where people are going on Facebook Marketplace and doing like Airbnb rentals there. It just doesn't make sense. And I get that they were down 20% revenue from January to August this year, is what the article in Skiff was saying. So I get like you're hurting financially and you're trying to recover, but I don't think you're understanding the ripple effect and the chain reaction is going to happen if you take off thousands of homes off one market. So, and then try to add a bunch of attractions and traffic and tourism opportunities to your destination. Jamie, any other thoughts?
No, that I think summarizes it well.
No,
Well,
it's just
no, concise. Well, this
concise.
kind of the topic of over tourism and how to handle that is, ties into our next story as well, which is about the tourist fees that Venice was charging or has been charging for people to enter the city. And I think that it's very, very unique because of the, geographic nature of Venice, that you could kind of control a lot of the inflow of people. But basically, they had picked a certain season, certain weeks where they would charge people for different things. Like you'd pay €5 to explore the city, which really isn't a lot. And it was for 54 days of the year, obviously during their their peak season, which makes sense. And they made $2.6 million in revenue during that time period. And so this is trying to control. I mean, if anyone's been to Venice in the last, I don't know, decade, it was huge groups. It's not very like this romantic notion of what you think Venice is going to be like. It's not that at all. And I imagine that if you're feeling that as a tourist, the people who live there are probably equally as frustrated because that is like an everyday of their life. And so, based on the information in this article, this actually worked. They weren't like, no more people coming into the city. They're like, hey, and it's a reasonable amount, €5. I feel like they could probably even raise that, like
And
20
54 days a
euros.
year.
Yeah.
It's not like it's
Yeah.
every day of the year. It's only 54 of their whole, 365. So
Yeah, and trying to get, and I think that money can directly be reinvested back into the local community for, whatever need they have. And it keeps a control on the kind of chaos that these big tours are bringing. So they have limits on, like, you can't have a tour more than 25 people, and you can't use any of the loudspeakers, which like nothing like gives me the heebie-jeebies more than a large group of like Americans running around listening to someone scream into a loudspeaker. I'm like, I'm very for this. So I think that this is a good example of how you can use some regulation and some rules and some fees to control over tourism without totally banning something.
Yeah, and I think it sort of moves into a trend that we're seeing across many destinations of charge a fee like a tourism tax, but then direct it into something that's not necessarily promoting tourism in that destination, which has historically been done. Like their transient occupancy tax has been collected forever. They've typically always then been spent to promote more tourism in a destination. But more than likely, what you see is like in a lot of these destinations, they don't need to promote more tourism. You don't need more tourists coming to Venice. Like they're now looking to restrict visitors, especially during peak seasons. So it's like, all right, let's take that money and maybe try to help some of the negative externalities, some of the bad things associated with tourism that we can actually and benefit from those tourism dollars coming into the destination. And I love seeing that. And so many markets I see like in the sort of push pull with short-term rentals. They're like, all right, we're going to tax, we're going to have a fee, but then we're going to take that fee, like in Telluride, like go back and push that into spending on affordable housing in that market. Because we know we need short-term rentals. We know we need the tourism. The economy is dependent on it, but we also need more affordable housing. So let's make this a win-win.
Yeah, that seems
Yeah.
perfectly like symbiotic and sensical to me.
Yeah, don't take the $5 entry fee and put it into marketing and promotion of Venice. Put it into actually making Venice a better experience for the locals and the tourists that are coming in. And then, of course, the natural effect will be more tourists will come because they want to experience that cool, beautiful city that is actually clean and maintained and has all these fun things. So I totally agree. And so the question I had for the group is, do you think something like this could be applied to destinations either in and outside the US that are experiencing similar regulatory issues where Spain is obviously going through a big transition and covering off or cutting off short-term rentals basically in Malaga and other parts of Spain, which for the listeners, go back to our GMH EU episode, or actually, no, tomorrow. The episode's coming out. So listen to the episode tomorrow if you want to learn more about that. But, do you think this could be applied? This is like a strategy for many different markets, or do you think this is really only applicable for something like Venice, where they obviously did it as a toe in the water experiment?
I think this can be applied pretty much anywhere. And then maybe it's not the same thing as like an entry fee because, but if you, like Jamie was saying, you take the
It's a
tourism
door
tax,
cover charge,
yeah,
and
exactly.
like
But
a
like
door cover charge fee.
you could do this. I mean, I think about in the Adirondacks where we have a lake house there, like this is a huge issue with workforce housing in general, but there's been talk of trying to ban short-term rentals there, even though that's like I mean, that's how people go and spend time at a lake or whatever. But you can take the tourism tax and feed that into like they're doing in Telluride to, promote local workforce housing. And there's probably if education needs, funding in an area, there's so many different ways that you could, service the local community. And I think that having sensible regulation makes sense. If you want to make sure that there's certain neighborhoods that are only residential and have things like that's fine. But like I think we're seeing just these pendulum swings. And I think the way that this has been applied can be applied to any of those places that have kind of like swung way too far in the other direction.
Yeah, and we almost saw it in New York starting this year with the congestion tax, or like certain parts of the city, and during certain times, like you'd have to pay to sort of travel in by car. But like it was like the eve of it going into effect, like it got squashed. So there are some negative effects for businesses that are, and you look at all the office buildings in New York that are now sitting empty, and you're like, we're going to charge people to come to the office, and then they're not going to spend in restaurants and eat lunch. And like, there are potentially negative effects when you do it like Venice did, where Venice is pretty unique of like, and it essentially an island that you can really cut off. And yes, Manhattan's an island, but and cities where they've got huge number of residences, a lot of people coming into work, like, and there's a lot of sort of push pull. And that's where, and to your point, Brandy, I really like sort of working it with the transient occupancy tax, because then it's specifically geared towards tourists, and can sort of leave residences out of it.
Yep.
Really good points. Really good points. For the live viewers and listeners today, would love your thoughts on this too, because I know there's a lot of you that are impacted due to the markets you're in, or just whatever that may be about. So would love all of your thoughts and input as well. But Jamie, back to you. Let's go into the next topic. You guys had a lot of interesting data that you presented at VRMA, and we got to see the slide, and there's a lot of trends. So I want to open it up to you in the sense of market shifts. There's some growth, or maybe demand is growing a little bit slower than previous years, but there's also macroeconomics around inflation and real income that's slowing growth. So would love to know your kind of overall overview from the presentation that you gave at VRMA.
Yeah. And one is, and we just see things continuing to slow in the US. Like you can't get around it, whether it's demand, supply. Like I see Brandy smiling when I talk about supply growth slowing. Like in September, we saw available listings only up 3.8%. So like we back up to September of 2022, it was growing north of 20%. Like it's just a massive deceleration. And really, and we see like some swinging movements, especially with what's going on in the housing market. So you look at what's been going on in interest rates and 30-year fixed rate mortgages, like we got down actually pretty low and below and low sixes, and as of a couple months ago. And now we're like, and we've grown right back and to where we were, closer to 7. Like, and some wild swings. What I thought was really interesting, though, was sort of the explanation economists are talking about with what's going on with interest rates, all tying around the election coming up. So we've got, and just like from September now to October, the chances of Trump have gone up pretty significantly of being president. And with that, increases in 10-year treasury, which directly impacts mortgage rates, which then further depresses housing investment. So, and yeah, it's crazy out there. I think what is clear, though, is that supply is going to be lower for longer. Like, you can't get around it. Like, this sort of hope of getting back to interest rates in the fives, like 5% mortgages again, like, it just isn't happening. Is not going to happen. It's not in our forecast for 2025. So any expectation that we're going to see this surge in new short-term rental investment over the next year, like, I don't see coming. So, and that's makes our forecast for next year pretty bullish in terms of being able to maintain current occupancy levels. And yeah, maybe not growing a whole lot, but at least not declining anymore. And with that maintaining occupancies, we're actually seeing some pricing power again. So obviously not in all markets, but across the board, we're seeing 3-4% increases in ADRs. And in a time where, like, we're last year, ADRs were declining anywhere from 5 to 10%, like some pricing power coming up and be able to raise prices again, like, it is pretty good. So I was going to ask Brandy, are you guys seeing any of that right now? Like, at least take Taylor Swift aside, which I
was like,
know is a big benefit in both of your markets. Like, are you guys seeing any?
What's interesting is that, so we, like I've mentioned before on the show, we have kind of like the opposite high season, right? So we're ramping up for high season. But interestingly, we had a pretty decent August and September comparative, like, to how that, and that's just kind of surprising. We had a pretty awful June, and then July was great. And so it's just, we're seeing kind of like weird trends. It's still, still low season is low season, but we are seeing, some better results than you would anticipate. But still being a bit like conservative going into high season. So there's still this like shakiness, I think, a little bit around the confidence, but it's cautiously optimistic is what I would say.
And as I was looking at the pacing data sort of in our coastal mountain markets, like traditional vacation rental markets for the rest of the year, we saw a good October. November, we're seeing down like 3-4%. And then Christmas holiday, we're essentially flat versus last year, which there is some like holiday shift there that's like impacting and when people are coming, but overall, like, not bad. And we're actually seeing pretty stronger demand for people like staying that and further into the first week of January. So maybe taking a bit longer vacations with sort of Christmas move back in the week a little bit.
In this economy, taking a longer vacation? Are you kidding me? It's kidding.
I'm here for it.
Just kidding. No, that's no, seriously. I wish I could be on the 9 longer vacation, but whatever. No, it's really interesting. And I was kind of, there's a lot of different areas of growth though, that I think, like, I know there's been a ton of impact from property managers that obviously were impacted by the hurricanes. So there's going to be a lot longer recovery in those markets due to obvious reasons. But I think like the area that's getting really excited outside of like, yes, supply and demand is shifting and probably not something to put all your eggs in one basket on for growth as your company. But I think again, going back to the experience piece, offering more around the home, creating a better experience in general, streamlining, becoming more efficient. It's just going to be the name of the game for 2025 for property managers and hosts. Whether you have one property or 100, I don't think it changes because you need to make your business profitable and actually worth putting in the long, gruesome hours worth of hard work. So, yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead, Brandy.
Good.
Oh, I was noticing like I feel for some of the vendors out there who have products that I would deem as like non-essential because there were some conversations that I was having at Verma and I was like, look, like love hearing about it, but like it's about being as efficient as possible. If I don't need your product, I'm not adding it. Like if going to
Yeah.
be vicious about going through your P&L. And I think that is like important to maintain because even if we have kind of some cautious optimism, like you never know how quickly that can change.
100%. 100%. I know we're at time here, but I kind of want to give Jamie the opportunity because he wasn't on last week. And if we feel like it's a good opportunity to go into this conversation about Brian Chesky on Scott Galloway's podcast, do you want to make any comments about this, Jamie, in the sense of the co-hosting market, or should we wrap up the show? Your choice.
And I'll make sort of two comments just because, and I love the interview. I would highly suggest people sort of listen to it because I thought Brian was a bit
We'll
more
link in the show
candid
notes
than he typically is, especially as like, and Scott was really pushing him on like where the future of Airbnb is going, and I think we got a lot of hints on like what we can expect in future launches because as you mentioned on the podcast last week, Will, like, and Brian's all in on like 2 to 3 big bets that could be billion-dollar businesses on their own. So we already saw 2024 around co-hosting. And co-hosting for me is like a host service marketplace. And like I see, and he talks about this of like this host service marketplace just expanding greatly into all sorts of services that they can be providing hosts and sort of breaking up the property management model where, and if I want a traditional vacation rental manager, I've got to pay them 20 to 30% of revenue and almost going after like a Turno type competition of where I can find a co-host who's just going to clean and I pay them the cleaning fee and it just happens on a per turn basis. And he clearly and hinted to 2025 and they're going to relaunch experiences. And then what I see too is the guest services marketplace. So all these add-ons we can offer to guests, which I know a lot of people offer through their PMS, but now Airbnb is going to be pushing heavily that you can offer directly through their platform. And then in 2026, I know you've been talking about this for years, Will, is this sort of, and he talks about like a physical social network of like, how can we like connect travelers in markets and have that be something that Airbnb could potentially monetize. And like, I remember back in like 2007, 2008, like when Airbnb was just going, like, and I was a couch surfer, like, and the couch surfing meetups in every city, like, and it really was like a physical social network. And like all the things that Brian and Scott were talking about was like, how can we recreate what couch surfing had back in the day? And in all these local markets, get travelers together, almost be like a like somewhat dating site too, and have that be the Airbnb Plus subscription, where it becomes something people are willing to pay for, not necessarily like a Hilton model or Marriott model of rewards being where you earn points and can burn them. So it was exciting to see him give more glimpse in the future of what could be coming.
I love that. And I think the only way, and this is my last comment before we wrap up on what you just said, Jamie, because I totally agree with a lot of what you said. I think the only way for the social media part of the Airbnb app to actually work is to have that physical in-person social media network. I think that's how they're going to get the online version to really take off because they're actually not controlling, but they're having an involvement in the actual in-person experience, which is going to be crucial. It can look great online. I think what a lot of Gen Z and even Gen X, consumers are looking at now is like they can tell very, very quickly when something is curated or faked online. If your Instagram reel is too perfect, or if you're this and that, like they're actually creating content that has mistakes. They have poor audio or poor video or like whatever, like poor edits, and they're okay with it because it gives more authenticity. And I think, again, this is only going to be able to work with an actual in-person experience and not just another online experience that a lot of people can curate and fake and kind of glamorize. So yeah, I love what you just said. It's a great point. I'm really excited to watch all the different changes that are going to happen.
Yep. And with short-term rentals, the best photos, you can't fake the experience, and
Yep.
the reviews don't lie.
Yep. 100%. Next time we have you on, Jamie, I want to get your thoughts on a potential Uber Expedia merger, because that was a big topic for me last week that I wanted to talk more about. But we'll get to that another day. Just another fun topic. But before we wrap up, any fun activities or exciting things you guys are looking forward to this week before we finally conclude the episode? Thanks for going a little over on that, by the way. I know we're past our 30-minute window, but I thought it was fun.
I would also like to say I didn't rant. I held my tongue about the Airbnb stuff. So we'll have to put a pin in that for another time. But no, this is just another week plugging away.
Another week plugging away. I love it. I think same thing for me. But what about you, Jamie? Now that you're getting settled back in from Colombia?
Yeah, mountain of emails and Slacks. So I'll be digging in for a couple days, and yeah, and we got Halloween on Thursday night, so I'll be sharing some cute kid photos and their Halloween costumes.
Love that.
There we go. We're here for it. We are here for it. I'm excited to see what Michael and Kristen do with Elliot, the chunkiest of chunks. I wonder if they're going to make him a pumpkin or basketball, something. It's got to be something round. He's got the biggest cheeks. So anyways, thank you, Terry White. Thank you to Bram, and thank you to John On for all attending the live and commenting in. We appreciate you guys. Stay tuned for Tuesday, where our European episode goes live. And then, of course, our hotel crew on Wednesdays. Check out all things Good Morning Hospitality at goodmorninghospitality.com and wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you guys all again next week.